Welcome to Meditating with John Vervaeke. I'm a cognitive psychologist and a cognitive scientist at the University of Toronto, and I academically and scientifically study phenomena like mindfulness and related phenomena like fluency, insight, flow, mystical experiences, transformative experiences, higher states of consciousness, the cultivation of wisdom and meaning in life. So welcome. This is actually a course. If you're joining us for the first time, please stay. But in order to catch up, check the notes for this video and you'll see links to previous lessons and to sits. Just so you know, every Monday is a Dharma day. Every Monday I teach a new principle and the principles build on each other progressively. And I give some sort of experiential exercise so you can understand it more directly. The rest of the week, including today, Tuesday through Friday, we meet together, we sit. I sometimes do a review. I'll do a review today of the material we covered yesterday because it was a lot of material. And I'll do some further review on Wednesday. So every day we meet, at the end of it, there is a question and answer period. The Q&As tend to be longer on the days that we just sit, Tuesday through Friday. We always meet at 9:30 EST. If you have questions, the Q&A at the end is specifically for questions regarding the practice that I'm teaching in this course. If you have more encompassing questions about how this fits into the cultivation of wisdom or how Buddhism compares to Stoicism or what this has to do with cognitive science of meaning or responding to the meaning crisis or other things from my other series or my channel, then once a month we have a live stream Q&A. You can ask those types of questions. Okay, so let's do a bit of that review. Oh, I have one significant announcement. So this is very important. Many of you know that my techno mage who runs the technology for me during all this is named Amar, and it is his most glorious birthday today. So happy birthday to Amar. Happy birthday, Amar. So last time we talked about the way in which we practice the 5 factors of inquiring mindfulness, and that is to befriend our distractions, to turn them into an arena in which we can learn much, much more. So the distractions go from being what the name implies, something that distracts us, to something that actually gives us an avenue for practicing the 5 factors and for learning a lot more about ourselves, because our distractions tend to reveal some of our mostly deeply ingrained habits of mind and identity. So let's first of all review the factors and the order in which we make use of them. The core factor is vigilance, and you practice that with meditative questing, which you will still want to do maybe once a week. Okay, meditative questing. That's that humility of attitude, that exploratory observation, that trying to get below the familiar face of your experience, to have the insight into the depths of a past enough. So when you have a distraction, either physical or emotional or mental, you first label the distraction as always, and then you would apply vigilance to it. Then sensitivity. Sensitivity you've already been cultivating a bit already when you were learning how to root. You turn all of the nouns of your experiences, all of the snapshots, into a flowing movie. So, for example, if my distraction was the physical distraction of pain, it's not pain, it's paining, and it's an unfolding process that keeps having novelty in it and emergent properties and features and patterns. Okay, so sensitivity is I let it flow and I flow with it. Acuity. Acuity is like, remember visual acuity? I try to give the analogy. I don't want everything confused together. I want to pull apart, and you learn this, of course, with finding your flow. I want to pull apart all the different kinds of sensations that I'm getting. So when I'm calling pain, when I let it flow, I can see that there's tension sensations and there's heating sensations, and there's kind of that mysterious felt yuckiness at the core of it, and there's a bunch of other things going on. Next is noticing. I try to notice the three aspects of reaction. What's my physical reaction? What's my lived body doing with respect to the pain? What are my emotions doing with respect to the pain? What is my mind doing? Not so much what was my mind thinking, but how is it moving? How is it shaping itself? What's its temperature? What's its tempo? So, right, you can do that with physical distractions, as I mentioned, with emotional distractions, With mental distractions, I recommend it, right? When it's something like thinking, you try and pay attention to properties of the voice. There might be multiple voices, right? And none of them might be yours, one of them might be yours, etc. Or if it's a scene, you try to pay attention to what's called mental paint. That's a firm term from philosopher Ned Block. You know, as if you were looking at that scene as if it was a painting, as if you step back and looked at a painting, and you weren't looking at it what it was a painting of, but what materials the artist had used to make it. For all three of these distractions, we have three principles of practice. If you go away, if you're distracted from your distraction by a distraction, you forget the whole inquiring mindfulness exercise, and then you return to your breath. You need to go back to basic Vipassana or basic Metta. Always go back. Even when you go back to Metta, go back to Vipassana first. Okay, if you go away. If it goes away, all right, then you return to your breath. Pay very careful attention to your attitude, because there's a temptation to try and turn this into a magical practice. If what you're doing is you're trying to meditate on thinking and the thinking goes away, pay attention to what that tastes like. What does that feel like in your mind when it's empty, like that moment of emptiness? And then return your attention to your breath. If you're into a case of merely enduring, and you can honestly say, I'm not learning because I'm just enduring, right? Come out of the practice, come out of it mindfully, do what you need to do to alleviate the source of the distraction, and then return, right? Like quickly recenter, reroute the whole bit, return to the Vipassana or the Metta. Okay. Tomorrow, I'll review what to do with hindrances. Those are the things that actually prevent you from practicing. So I'll review tomorrow what to do with hindrances. That's the review today for distractions. Let's go over it one more time. And there's notes in yesterday's lesson about this. Vigilance, sensitivity, acuity, noticing. Oh, and I forgot to do the fifth one, which is reminding. Okay? Reminding is throughout the other four, the vigilance, the sensitivity, the acuity, and the noticing. Reminding is sati. Remember to stay in the practice. This is a mindfulness practice. This is an intentional and attitudinal practice. This is not, you do not want to get into theorizing, narrating, justifying. Okay? You want to stay in exploratory observation. Stay in the quest. Okay. Vigilance, sensitivity, acuity, noticing, and reminding. Okay. All right, so please make sure you're ready, you're comfortable in your posture. Please set your phones to do not disturb, and we will begin when I say begin. Begin. Slowly begin to come out of your practice, trying as best you can to integrate what you cultivated in your practice with your everyday consciousness and cognition. Coming out of your sit is part of your practice. It is how we cultivate integrity. So here's some questions. This one is from Gabriel Rubenstein. My interest seems to be mostly captured by sensations in my torso, but outside my dantian. Any tips for maintaining focal attention there? So try and intend. So try to intend to give priority to the sensations of motion. The sensations of motion, because you're probably picking up on all other kinds of sensations, and that's good. Right? We're not talking about losing those. We're talking about, in order to keep the dantian focal, we concentrate on the sensation of motion. There's motion throughout, I get that, but this is where the motion is most pronounced. And if you sort of intend to prioritize motion so that it's what you're most focally aware of, and then as the motion, right, dissipates throughout your torso, that's how your awareness dissipates. So there's sort of tightly calibrated coupling between how much attention, right, how much focal attention you're giving to where there's focal motion, and then that dissipates to more peripheral attention with the more peripheral motion. Heren Augustinson, what about tinnitus as a distraction? Well, I can speak very directly to that. I have, as I've mentioned, Meniere's in my ear, and in addition to getting the pain and the pressure and the vertigo and the nausea, one thing I have is I have constant ringing in this ear, constant loud ringing. And so what that means for me is doing the practice and not trying to make that go away, but accepting the fact that it'll always be a background thing. It'll always be the ringing in the background of my awareness. For me, it doesn't mean that I don't get into very deep states. I do. But I had to accept that, right, the ringing, well, it's almost like, in addition, and I talk about how there's that murmuring all around the side. That, like I think of it almost like a theater. There's center stage, and then there's, off to the sides and the wings. Into, in addition to the monkey jumping in the wings, there's always this ringing going on in the rings. And if you shift, right, if you accept it, sort of radically accept that. I'm not telling you how to deal with your health. That's not my expertise. We're talking about how to deal with this experience in the practice. If you can accept that ringing is going to be, and give it a place, say, okay, I acknowledge you. You're going to be in the background. You're going to be in the background. Okay, that is what has worked for me, and that it's a very challenging thing, and I empathize and sympathize quite deeply with you. But this is what has worked for me. So we'll do some more questions tomorrow. I will also do some more review tomorrow. Tomorrow I will review how to deal with the hindrances and the 3 refuges again. I want to thank you all for joining. I want to thank my dear friend and Technomage Jamar, wish him a happy birthday once again. And of course, my beloved son, Jason, who's always here accompanying me and helping me. Please subscribe to the channel to be notified of the next video. Remember, you can go to links in the description of this video to previous lessons. You will also find on that channel, as I said, lots of videos that I've given on things like mindfulness and insight and flow, mystical experience, higher states of consciousness, wisdom, enlightenment, right? How to respond to the meaning crisis. Okay, so that's all there. I get also in my, that's in Awakening from the Meaning Crisis. And there's also a lot of, I get to have discussions with really wise and astute people on Voices with Vervaeke. You might find that helpful as well. Please share with others this class. This is one of the ways I'm trying to help people during the crisis. And so you could help me to help others by promoting this course as much as possible. Reminder, we're doing this every weekday morning at 9:30 EST. There's always a Q&A at the end of each, and that once a month we have the live stream general Q&A. So everyone, please continue to practice. Remember, continuity of practice is more important than quantity. If you honestly can only sit for 5 minutes, sit for 5 minutes. And I wish you well. Thank you for your time and attention. Take care, everyone.